Hey, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the Tim Gillette Show. I am Tim Gillette, your host, and this show is all about finding out who the coolest people are on the planet. We have real conversations with real influencers. These are big about making a real difference in our world, and this is not like this fabricated conversation. No, this conversation is going to be a real one today, all right, where we find out real things about our guest and real things about what they're doing to change the world. Today's guest, Jeffrey Wolfe, old-time friend of mine. All right, him and I go back probably 10, 11, 12, 15, I don't know, probably 20 years or so. All right, we've been good friends for a long time, both doing great things in the spaces. He has a different angle at how he helps people, and I'm going to ask him questions about it today so you can actually see it and see where he's leading the big-time CEOs, where I'm helping more of the independent CEOs or the solopreneurs. And I'm going to have him go through some of the stuff he's done over the years. All right. We'll share. I'm sure we'll talk about motorcycles somewhere down the road because we're both into bikes, but we're old friends and you'll get to see how much fun we can have together while on the same camera. Hey, Jeff. You there, man? There you go.
Yes, I am. You know what? I apologize. I was slow to the game. I had you going on two different screens because watching your Facebook feed, and that was just, I was caught up in the story. I was thinking,
wait a minute, there was a story?
And I was picturing you on your motorcycle when you're rolling up to an event that we were at together. Gosh, it was like 10 years ago.
It was. I brought that motorcycle. I had that motorcycle. That was the fancy blue one I had.
Yes, it was.
I had from 2011 to 2014, I think, is when I got rid of it. So, yeah. And I took it to LA at least 4 times. So
nice. And, I appreciate being on your show. And there's nothing that says I'm honored to be a guest, like opening up with going,
yeah.
Dead air, looking off on the.
So, it's every radio host's dream to open.
Isn't it though? IRA professional.
Yeah. No.
So, but this is. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a great conversation. It's always a great conversation with you.
We've had some good ones. We've had some bad ones.
You're one of the people that has permission to check me when because sometimes as you're watching this, you might find it's hard to believe. At times I'm a little bit excitable. I've gotten better about that over the years. Tim has been one of those men that is, kind of giving me the elbow and going, hey, what are you doing? Think about that. Come here.
Let me grab you one time at an event and pull you outside and said, dude, if you got to punch somebody, punch me. Let's not punch.
You did.
Punch me.
You did. And I was just like going, boy, I'm really being that guy I don't want to be. Thank you for that.
But that's what true friends are about, man. All right. Because I can't tell you how many times my wife has stepped in and helped me from stepping in shit. I mean, come on. She does it for me all the time. She's like, whoa, let me pull the reins back on you there, man. All right. Before I end up in trouble. That's why we have a team of people around us, right?
And we just got back from La Jolla. Mm-hmm. We were at an event in La Jolla. Alice was able to go along, and she says hello, by the way. And once again, thank you for her iPad.
I tell Alice I don't even have an iPad anymore.
Alice, she heard me talking to her. She's waving. Tim says he doesn't even have an iPad anymore.
I did away with it. I don't have. I have this and a laptop, and I very rarely take the laptop out anymore.
She has gotten so much use out of that. And the story, as you're watching this, the story is Tim was doing a raffle at an event series that we were both at. And at the last minute, I threw a card in just on a lark. And guess what? All of a sudden, I'm hearing my name shouted. Mm-hmm. And as you saw earlier, I'm really good at kind of going, huh? What? And it's like running for the stage. Like, going, what's going on? He's going, you just won an iPad. And it's like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. We've gotten so much use out of that. And in fact, when we were in La Jolla, we were talking about you in the iPad. We're walking along the cliffs, overlooking the ocean, found this nice bench where we can look at just the blue ocean. It was just one of those days where it was just a nice temperature, a light breeze, got a whole flock of pelicans that are just drifting on the wind going by, listening to waves roll in, and just had a great conversation. It's one of those where you connect deeper. So we're talking about relationship stuff and our marriage and what we're both doing business wise, and just went to lunch feeling I don't know, it's feeling zen is the better way to put it. It just gave us such a great vibe. We're going, these are the kinds of moments that life's really about, that life and business are really about. The same kind of moments where there's been times that, you've drugged me outside at an event once and said, hey, what's going on with the attitude? There's been a lot of times where we've shared moments like that too, though, where we've had great conversations where I've just gone, it's giving me chills just thinking about some of it over the years. And that's what I appreciate about having you as a friend, as a colleague, as a mentor, an advisor, because it's all about who do we put ourselves around, right? Where do we position ourselves? What people do we associate with that help us, keep raising our game?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've also noticed though, over the years, all right. I see you at a lot of events, and then I don't really see your business aspect at the event, but you're there helping someone else. All right. Famously, I've seen you help Eldana how many times? All right. Eldana was here in Dallas. I think I have some of her stuff still in my storage bin. I don't know. She's like, Tim, I have to do this event in Dallas, but I don't want to ship this stuff back home. Can I store your place? I'm like, yeah. I don't know what it is. I have to go look through my storage bin to see what it is. But she's like, can you put this? I'm like, yeah, for you. Yeah. All right. I've had other people call me and ask me that. I'm like, no.
Yep.
Because I don't know them as well as I know you and Eldana, But I do remember the time. I mean, I know when you got another bike, I do remember the time I came to town. You're like, you want to take my bike for a ride? I'm like, no, I don't want to ride your bike in LA. No, not interested.
That I understand.
We're up there, Santa Barbara. Yeah. But in LA, no.
Well, that's the whole point, right? Is to ride through LA so that we can get to places like Santa Barbara, Ojai, riding PCH along the coast.
Now, the last time I had a bike out there was 2015 or 16.
Okay.
That was my black Road Glide. That was the last bike I had. And
nice. Yes.
I trailered it out. All right. And then I stayed I remember Melody Meyer. I stayed up at her house for a week between conferences. All right. I attended a conference, and then I went stayed at her house, and I took it off the trailer at her house and left the trailer sit in her driveway, and I rode the bike everywhere. And she lived Santa Barbara area. I would ride. Her husband at the time told me, "Oh, go to this winery and stuff like that." So I mean, I think I rode all the way up to Morro Bay with it, just to go up and see a buddy of mine I know in Morro Bay. So
beautiful.
Yeah,
that's a lot of wind therapy.
Yeah, it is. That's a beautiful country to ride the bike in. I'm just telling
you. It is.
You,
and it's so different. It's amazing how in such a relatively short distance, the scenery, the feel of it can be so different.
Yeah. Yeah. No. To me, that was the greatest trip to ever do on a motorcycle, because all the crap that I had to go through to get to where I wanted to ride, I was in the truck. And you pull it off the trailer and ride.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's something a lot of people are like, They used to pick on us, I like how you trailered your bike to Daytona. And I'm like, at the time I rode mine here, and not no more. I'm like, yeah, once you get older, you don't want that. So,
right. You've already earned your cred, street cred, right?
Once I hit 1 million miles, I was like, my
interest, 1 million miles. Oh,
yeah.
I've got a ways to go.
Yeah. 1 million miles. That's a lot of miles on a motorcycle. I'll bet you I bet you my rain suits have almost 100,000 miles on them. That's a lot of riding in the rain.
I'd believe it. Believe it.
So, because I rode one time all the way from Chicago on Route 66 all the way back to Oklahoma in the pouring rain for 3 days. Pouring rain.
3 days in the pouring rain.
3 days in the pouring rain. Yeah. And I was with a group of 4 other guys, and I remember every time we stopped, one of the guys would have to park his bike on the street. We'd go into a parking lot, and he'd have to be putting stones under kickstands one by one. And then we'd get off and get a stone, so he'd pull his into it. Because every place we went was a mud hole. We've been riding in rain for 4 days.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where you. And I've never seen those guys again. I rode with those guys one time from Illinois to Oklahoma, and they rode through all the way through to LA and back on 66. Dang. They were from Michigan, and that's it. I connect with people like that all over the world. I rode with somebody from Australia one time across the panhandle of Florida. We just happened to be riding in the same direction. And
in 2019, we rode to the north rim of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And I met a group of guys from Michigan.
Yeah.
that were taking their annual ride out west. What are the odds that that might have been the same, some of the same group of guys?
Yeah.
I've had stuff like that happen where I go, oh yeah, do you know so-and-so? It's like, oh yeah, we did this thing, 8 years ago. It's like, oh my gosh, what are the odds you would cross paths like that?
Yeah. Yeah. No. I remember the first time I took like a month-long road trip. I mean, I rode a lot, but I took a month-long road trip. That would have been 2010. And I was riding from Dallas all the way out to LA to meet my wife. Then I was going to go all the way up to, I rode all the way up to Seattle, and I came back around. And on my way out, I was in Arizona. What's the town that has the little Route 66, all the cool shops onto it?
Oatman with the burros that are out in the street.
No.
No?
The Oatman's the backwoods one.
Yeah.
It's in Arizona.
Kingman?
Huh?
Kingman?
It might be Kingman. So, but like the campground, I stayed at the campground there, and that was the night. Like, I mean, I would do like every other night, I would get a cabin as opposed to a tent.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a cabin that night. And like after dark, I come back from dinner and park my bike in front of the cabin, and this other biker comes in and sets up their campsite. At dark, they're setting up a campsite. I get up in the morning, and it's a girl who's riding one of those Kawasaki BMW like cross bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Can ride it dirt, can ride it thing. And she was taking a road trip east. Just left California the night before. So we connected again. Her and I connected again in like when she was on the tail end going back. I came out and met her. I was speaking at an event in New Mexico, went down and met her another town over.
Nice.
And then we hung out and rode a couple things in New Mexico and Texas together. All right. A couple roads. And found out that for years, all right, like, she was a photographer in the film industry, like a promotional photographer.
Yeah.
She worked on the same TV series that Alan Robertson did, Sandra's husband.
Yes.
And she was very good friends with Walt Grassel.
It is such a tiny blue marble that we live on.
Blown away. Yeah.
As you're watching this, we're good friends. Tim and I are both good friends with Walt Grassel, who was a highly skilled engineering manager, he had several hundred people, very, very humble guy. And he had several hundred people working for him. And one of the major aerospace companies is now a professional speaker, helps people overcome the fear of speaking when you're just starting out. And he's a great coach. But to have that connection that she knows Walt, and I met Alan and Sandra D, who's an actress. Alan's a very legendary stuntman that Tim also knows. I met him through Tim and another friend of ours, Craig. So it's just interesting how all these connections happen. And then you're out in the wilderness, and somebody goes, oh yeah, I know this person. And it's like one of your best friends.
Yeah. So, and bizarre. So, and it's funny now, I've been down to Sandra and Robin's ranch, but I don't think I've ever rode a motorcycle down there. I think I've always taken the car down. Since they've gotten that ranch, I've always taken the car down. It's just I guess some of my motorcycle days are just really gone. So yeah.
When they still lived when they had their ranch in California, we visited for an event that they were running there. And she's a great on-camera coach.
Yeah, she is. So her and I did a couple events. We've done 2 or 3 events together. So
awesome. Well, they did this thing where they're going. We're looking at the horses that they had because they both love horses. And she goes, "Yeah, these are movie horses." And we go, "What do you mean?" I go, "Pick up, pull up a camera like you're going to take their picture." And so I go, "Okay." So I go like this with my cell phone, and I kid you not, there were like 3 horses. They all just in line. They all kind of went. Brrr. Okay, I'm ready for my shot. I was just like, it was the funniest thing that I had ever seen.
No.
So they're trained. It's like when they see the lens, like going, okay, here we go. Strike a pose.
Cindy Lee. Oh, I love this. Always great
Cindy.
to see you. So I think you know Cindy, don't you?
Yeah, I believe so. It's great thanks for joining us, Cindy.
Yeah. No. So what are you up to now, man? What's going on in your world? I mean, we haven't seen each other live since the pandemic started.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The great lockdown. Wow. It's been an insane couple of years, hasn't it?
How does it feel to still be out there in the communist land? Oh.
We visit America whenever we get the chance. It's just all kidding aside, though. But it's been a crazy couple of years, and now we're finding ourselves high inflation, no end in sight. Some of the smart money saying, this inflation thing, regardless of what the talking heads say, we're looking at 3 to 5 years of this. Interest rates are starting to spike. Federal Reserve has to crank up interest rates to get inflation under control, which 11 of the last 12 times they did that pushed us into a recession.
I don't know. I'm not. Shit happens, all right. You know what I mean? We had a bad instance with health issues that basically, they were making the right decisions. I may not agree with them, but they were making the right decision as a government to save the American people. I get it, but every decision you make has a consequence. I mean, I'm sure you see that in helping CEOs. Every decision you make has counter decisions that come up with it. Has counter effects. It affects things, and we don't. So many people want to say, "Oh no, it's all good." Oh no, it's Biden's fault. Oh no, it's Trump's fault. No, it's life's fault, ladies and gentlemen. One decision gets made, it causes other things to go, and it's not a right or wrong. All right. I really, whether you like Biden or like Trump, I do not think either one of them got in the office and say, "Hey, how can I screw the American people today?" No, they both believe they're trying to help. All right. And that does not always mean that the decisions they make are going to be the best. But
I was just going to say, I'm not making a political statement that the reality we have is we've got high inflation, interest rates are coming up. This is going to last for a while. We don't know how long it's going to last. The biggest question is, how bad will it get?
Yeah.
What do we do? What do we do to thrive through that? What do we do to thrive through that?
What do we do? Stop putting on them. What do we do to fix us? That's always been my thing. I don't care who it is. It's what am I going to do to fix me? And I'm sure you work with CEOs, so most of the people you work with are a little bit bigger companies than mine. I have 2 or 3 people to worry about. They got hundreds to worry about.
Even with 2 or 3 people, the what they call the economic multiplier. So those 3, let's use 3. It's a nice number. Nice. I love trilogies. 3 people that affects 9 other people. 3 people in a business support 9 other jobs, because the average economic multiplier is a little over 3 to 1. In a manufacturing business, it's 7 to 1. I did a lot of work with manufacturing companies earlier in my career, and that leverage is huge. And that's why I like working with entrepreneurs, working with CEOs, because we can have a massive impact. Those businesses grow. That means there's a whole bunch of families that have food, shelter, clothing, have options. Have the opportunity to move towards their, achieving their dreams and goals. Because even if that job's just temporary, it's putting them in a position where they're in charge of what they're doing. They can say, "Okay, I got this."
Yeah.
As opposed to, "Help me."
Well, let me ask your opinion on this, Jeff. All right, there's so many times I see people, they get all up in our uproar and say, "Well, the C-suite, all right, the executives, they're making so much more money, they should share it." In my opinion, all right, it's good when they're making money because they're making money because the company's making money. If the company's making money, they're able to keep people hired. If they're able to keep people hired, they're able to influence more people. That's my opinion, all right? Yes, you may think it's too much. To me, if you've turned that company around or you've made that company successful, you probably deserve that salary. My opinion. Well, I'd like your take on that.
Yeah, well, and that's an issue with the Fortune 100, the Fortune 500. In entrepreneurial companies, the disparity is not as big.
Yeah.
And even with, so let's run with that. Let's run with a Fortune 100 company. Like the biggest company I worked for when I was running corporate teams, we had 65,000 people working at that firm. I believe that was just in the US. Globally, there were more. In the US, we had 65,000 people working at 5 different business units. So the CEO was making, say the CEO is making $1 million a year. And I don't know what the salary really was, but say the CEO is making $1 million, $2 million a year. And an upper level manager is making $250,000. I knew one of the VPs of manufacturing. A guy had 6,000 people working for him. His salary was $250,000 a year with bonuses. If he maxed out all of his performance, he'd get about $500,000 a year. For 6,000 people, what does that work out to in terms of if you think about it? Was it Andrew Carnegie that said, "I'd rather have a little bit of I'd rather have like $1 out of the wages of 1,000 men than have $1,000 in
I
income.
don't know if it was Andrew Carnegie, but I know the statement. Yeah.
Something along those lines. Well, if you looking at it that way, if that executive gets everything that is possible for him, gets $500,000 and he has 6,000 people working for him, what is that per person? You know, sometimes I see knucklehead moves where a CEO, there were some, and this drives this type of resentment and envy, you know, which never works out well. Living on resentment and envy, trust me, after extensive testing, I got a lot of stories on that. It just doesn't create good stuff in life.
No, they don't.
I've seen knucklehead examples that are easy to use to go, this should never, you know, this shouldn't be, it's not right. Where a CEO's brought in, they really just run the company into the ground, or for whatever reason, it doesn't go well and the company really collapses under their leadership. And then when they leave, they either resign or they're fired. They get this huge golden parachute where they're paid millions and millions, you know, or in some cases, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars on the way out the door, even though it didn't perform well. Well, who's that really on? That's on the board of directors, because they had to approve that lunacy in the first place.
Yes.
You shouldn't do that. And it's just, there's always bad examples. Every profession, there's bad examples. And with the CEOs, they're creating so much value person by person. You know, so if there's 65,000 people in a company that a CEO is getting paid $1 million plus a year to run, say it's like an industrial company, that's 7-to-1 leverage. There's over 500,000 people, 500,000 families that are affected by that company doing well. And those are high paying jobs. Yeah. So in that balance, I go, you know, there's some rationale for it. And there's some unfortunately very public examples of CEOs running off the rails, doing bad. Tyco is a great example. When Tyco collapsed, and if you remember that in the early 2000s, the CEO is doing all kinds of shady stuff. But that's the exception, not the rule. Especially the entrepreneurial CEOs. And I don't work with big publicly traded companies. It's not my gift to work with. There's so many moving parts, and there's a scale issue. I learned from working with big companies that's just not. You know, I'm kind of, there's pressures and organizational dynamics that I don't have time for. When you work with entrepreneurial companies, like say, you know, 500 employees or less that are privately owned, the heart that entrepreneurs have for the communities that they serve, the people that are on their team, for securing their families, setting a good example for their kids, is something that I love being around. That energy, that spirit. Is so much fun to work with, and to help accelerate that success is just, it has a huge impact. And that's what I'm looking for. Where can I have best leverage with the time I've got on this planet? And that is, you know, work with leaders of leaders, work with entrepreneurs, because they're CEO. Another way to look at it is continually expanding opportunities.
Yeah. So, and, you know, a good example is our good friend, Larry Broughton, what he went through the pandemic. Yeah. All right. Larry, you know, really stepped up his game. To try to make things do right by his employees, but he had to follow legal grounds on everything he did. But he still did everything within his power to try to keep his companies afloat. Right. Yes.
Owner of a hotel chain in the middle of the great lockdown. Right. You're basically forced into temporary closure while still making payroll.
Yeah. Yeah. And I basically said, he said, I never ever in my life in the hotel business thought I would ever have 100% unoccupancy.
Yes. How do you plan for that? Right. Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. So nice. I'm in real estate, and like we invest in a lot of multifamily projects, and a lot of the average multifamily project we invest in, all right, when they take over, when we create the new company and they take over the complex, has a 70, maybe 80% occupancy rate. The objective is to get it to 90%. I'm just in the due diligence phases with one company. They're trying to take over one factor where they actually have 100% occupancy rate. Wow. And they have, I mean, the people have, like, how do you make that a bad deal? The whole place is 100% occupied and you can't get a vacant unit. That's just the current market we're in. Versus poor Larry 2 years ago had a 0% occupancy rate. You know, two different business models in the real estate world. So,
Yes. Was it Warren Buffett that said in times like we saw in 2020, you find out who was swimming naked?
Yeah, exactly. So,
But
that made me, watch where I put everything. I had money diversified in different places. Now, I wish to God I would have taken everything I had in the stock market. I wish to God I would have taken it out 5 months ago. Because it's not all, it's down, way down, and it'll be months before I ever get that money back. Whereas,
and it's a steeper climb back up.
Yeah.
A lot of times people aren't aware. They go, oh, it drops 25%. I just need to make 25% back. It's like, no, you need 50% back to get to even.
Yeah. So I think I have one of my stock positions that I have bought. I think I looked at this morning. I think I'm $17,000 in the hole for what I paid for it.
Oh, ow.
Yeah. But I make $4,000 every quarter on a dividend. So,
good. Right. Yeah. So long-term hold, still a good
over
position.
Long-term, I'll make that money back just on the dividend, but that's business. All right. We look at our business world and go, that's business and what we're going through. What are you helping the CEOs who are having to make decisions in times like this? What are you helping them do right now?
Do you remember the 70s and 80s? Like
Barely.
A lot of the workforce, almost half the workforce now is millennials, and they've never been through high inflation. Yeah. A lot of the CEOs have not been through a big inflation cycle unless they're in the boomer generation. And I remember being in college, I was able to live at home with my parents, which at the time was kind of like, well, I didn't really want to. Today, I value that so much because I worked through college, didn't carry any student debt as a result of that. And over dinner, we had these conversations about, because inflation was just going crazy. Mm-hmm. It peaked at 15% in the early 80s. People were buying houses with 17, 18% interest mortgages at the time. And my parents were both depression kids. So we talked about things like, how do you make hamburger stretch farther? Good, not just mac and cheese, but you take mac and cheese and throw a pound of hamburger in it and a little bit of tomato sauce. And all of a sudden you've got a casserole that lasts, the three of us for the week. We talked about what did they do? What was the shift that they saw during the Depression that made it possible to get through those times? How did that apply? And it was crazy times, and being able to shift priorities. I got through that. They got through that. They almost lost their house. And they got through it. I learned from that. Now I'm looking at, okay, in this high inflation cycle with a possible recession on the horizon, what's that little shift that needs to happen in order to stack the deck, stack the odds for success for those that, that are struggling right now or that are knocking out of the park and looking for, okay, what's that next little tweak that we got so we can keep crushing it in spite of the inflation. So we're looking at things like that. Like for, you were talking about what's going on with the stock market. One of the things that people need to do in high inflation, business owners, they need to dig into their financials. They don't need to become a financial expert. They need to up their game in financial analysis and know what numbers, what ratios to be tracking so that they make sure, like, for example, accounts receivable aging.
Yeah.
Is a huge one. I had a manufacturing client that had, for manufacturing, for their industry, they had pretty good average days aging. Half of their customers paid within 20 days. Variation can be cruel, though. When we looked at what's the spread around that 20 days, there was this really long tail off the other side that showed 25% of their revenue was coming in 60 days. Mm-hmm. Well, depending on whose numbers you look at, current inflation is somewhere between 8.5% and Federal Reserve said as high as 18% by one of their measures. So let's use 12% as an example. It's realistic in our current environment. That means you're losing 1% of your revenue every month that ages. So the 30-day pays cost them 1% of their original price that they were supposed to pay. 60 days lost 2%. It was the equivalent, when they annualized it was the equivalent of carrying two people on payroll that did nothing, that were like no-show jobs.
Yeah.
And so that just erodes income. So it's like, that's one of the numbers. Go, hey, shift everybody's focus in the business to cash. We need cash today. Hang on to it because tomorrow it's not worth as much.
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
we're writing this out. So you're getting some good comments here too.
Yeah, we've got
Enjoying the video.
I see
Nice.
Robert here. Got into it. I kicked myself for being the president at the computer to catch the beginning, but I wanted to learn anyway. He's a great follower, a great listener of our show. I was enjoying a video about vintage cassettes, decks, in other words, the stuff of dreams when I was a teen. Performance last year, yeah. It cost $600 in 1990, and it was in new condition.
That's a pretty high end deck for 1990 price, because that'd
Yes.
be like a couple grand today.
Yes.
But thanks for joining us, Robert. It's always great to have, it's a better conversation. This is 21st century television, right? Live and interactive.
Yes. That's what I like about doing my show this way, is because I get more. I used to do it on, and I'm not sure if you did one of those episodes when I did it on Zoom. And I didn't have the capability of dealing with both my YouTube and my Facebook audience for comments.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was very tough to do it. And that's where, I love this platform to be able to record my show and broadcast to the live. So I get the audience live, the audience in the replay video, and the audience in the audio version when I put it out. So anyway.
Awesome. To come back to your question, so that's just one example of the different dimensions of it. We're working with, look, here's the things that you need to do. This is the shift you need to have in your role as the CEO, but also in what your people need to be doing, where they need to be focused during high inflation in order to maintain margins, to deepen customer relationships.
Yes.
The war for talent's a huge issue still. How to keep them, keeping employees on, keep who you got so you don't lose your best people, and then how to recruit the right talent. We're launching a webinar, doing our second webinar on how to scale up during high inflation, coming up on the 25th actually of this month.
And how many people are you seeing now? I mean, over the past 10 years, I've seen a lot of people go, well, I want to go start my own business now. Now, how many people are going, man, I want to go start my own business because the profitability in their company is not there?
Yeah.
Basically, if I quit my job, I'll find 10 others tomorrow because everybody's hiring, so it doesn't matter. Are you finding more people going, now I'll go take that chance? And usually when we have high inflation, we have bad times, you would think that that's not the time to take a chance. But we have a reverse. We have people willing to go do it more than ever.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And because they've got the tools to do it so that it's a lower risk as well.
Yeah.
Right. It used to be, you have to go out and lease a space and put advertising in newspapers, which was the last time I ran a newspaper ad, it was like $10,000 per week. It was a weekly ad, it's $10,000 per week right up front. And that's been a while. So it'd probably be about, not sure how that's changed. The internet may have driven it down, but it costs so much more without having any idea, is this going to work?
Yeah.
Now it's possible for people to go, you know what, I can test this, or I can join this group that is helping people start business. I had a great conversation with someone that's doing that last night. We're talking about how she is testing what she's doing. She's hooked up with a group that is helping people start businesses in the financial services sector as advisors. And there's so much more coaching and mentoring and infrastructure support that's affordable that there wasn't, say even 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's a great time. And I'm seeing more people take that risk. They're being locked down for a long season gave people an opportunity to reflect and go, am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing with my life? Am I really enjoying the journey? What needs to adjust there?
Well, I mean, what did you do during lockdown? I mean, you can't go out I went out every day to get my coffee, and as it was, I can't stand going through drive-through, so I had to make a deal with the coffee people to bring it out to the front door for me. Blah blah blah. Right? That became a nuisance to me. Well, What do you do with that extra time that you're at home? I've been working at home for 12 years of my life, so I'm used to putting myself into a disciplined schedule. But what are you, or what are the average person going out there and doing? What did they do during to make their life better? Or did they just go, okay, I'm going to watch TV?
Some did that. Some watched TV. But I don't know many people that do that because I like hanging around people like you.
Yeah.
You know, they're making stuff happen. I saw a lot of people though that took the opportunity to learn new skills, to spend more time, you know, connecting on the internet. To use as an example, my wife's a consultant, and the client that she was working for, they called everybody, all their employees, plus service providers like her, and said, "Stop by at this day." They scheduled everybody to just drive over to our offices, and on this date, IT is going to walk out, and they're going to give you a kit so you can work from home.
Yeah.
And they set and they set everybody up. Other companies helped provide some guidance on what their people would need. They said, "Hey, you know, get your act together at home." Most people, I think, had enough tech at home that they could work remotely, and it changed attitudes.
Yeah.
And watch some, you know, some had some conflict. We actually had a good time because now we got to have lunch with each other, and we started to schedule our days like that. You know, what's our rhythm on our day? Can we sit down? What can we do that makes the day a little bit fun, that lets us enjoy the fact that we're working from home together, even though we do different businesses.
Yeah.
But for the first time
I think
we've known each other.
we lasted 60 days because we have a small condo with a large ceiling going, and my office doesn't close off. It's got two open doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the two of us are on the phone all the time. So I think we lasted 60 days of everything we were doing. We could everybody could hear our calls, each other's calls. And then she basically said, at the time, she says, "Well, my office is 2 miles away. No one's going to know whether I'm there or not." So she just went in anyway. But then ended up leaving that company during the middle of all that in 2020, and left and went and started a new company with another team. You know, joined another leader, and they started a whole new company to compete with her old company.
Yeah. You know, I talked to the pools and spas industry, but wait a minute, before you triggered a memory, but at the same time, we went through that as well. So we had to figure out how to block off the spaces so that we can both, when we're on the phone or online at the same time, we're not stepping on each other's conversations or echoing into another conversation. Yeah. And that was a challenge. We figured it out though. Yeah.
So, I mean, and our next goal is, it's like, you know, as we live in a condo, whereas now we're like, okay, we're going to sell the condo, go buy a house again. But then again, we changed our world to where, coming out of the pandemic, we are in a better place that we'll be able to do that. And, you know, there's a lot of people are worried about, you know, well, how can you afford that? The prices are going up. Doesn't matter to me. I built my business so I can afford it,
right? Yeah.
So,
and we see that in a lot of. I bumped into somebody that I knew from my aerospace days, way back in the dawn of history, and I was surprised to learn that some of the big aerospace companies here in California, they're taking half of their parking space at some of their campuses and converting it over to mixed use, because those jobs will never come back on site. Their permanent remote workforce is going to be so large that they no longer have a use for half of their parking space.
Yeah.
And for security concerned organizations like that, I was really surprised that they would do that, because there's a lot of other things they need to add in order to be able to effectively work remotely and comply with security needs. But yet they're doing that because they're getting better productivity. The people are happier. They can shed a lot of commercial space or a lot of office space that they no longer need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just interested, you know, my ad hoc guesstimate is that we're probably running close to 30% unused office space around here, around Southern California. Because even when we were in an upscale booming area, relatively booming area like La Jolla, I was astounded at how many, you know, office spaces, commercial spaces are going, you know, we're empty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're still building more
around here.
Yeah, doing the same thing here, but we're not using what we've got. It's like, this is going to be interesting to see where this leads, and I think it's going to be very regional, where some areas are going to be so overbuilt on office and commercial space that at some point it's going to create a problem. Other areas are booming and they can't build it fast enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So, A lot of people did leave California in places like California, New York, Chicago, when they realized with their workforce working remote, I don't have to pay that high rent to live in New York City anymore, so I can go live in
Right.
Boomtown, Kentucky, as long as I got a good internet connection.
Well, and from a business owner standpoint, whether you have 3 employees, 30 or 300,
Yeah,
if you can work with remote employees, now your talent pool has just gone global. Now you
yeah,
can scour the planet, at least the nation,
yeah, yeah.
for the best talent to be part of your team, as opposed to just looking locally because they've got to come into the office.
Yeah. Well,
That's a huge, I think that's a game changer for a lot of businesses
it
that
is.
they finally realized during 2020.
Yeah, let's flip that though. How many businesses are like now want to go, okay, back to the office. I want control of you. How many are you dealing with
And
any
it's,
of them?
yeah, hearing those stories, and it's not working well for some of them
Yeah.
because I think that's from some of the research I've been reading that's helping to feed this great resignation that we're continuing to hear about. Stats are, I think it's 4.5 million people quit their jobs in March.
Wow.
And there's 2 things with that. That's a big number, but it's just a number. So how does that, what's the context? How does that compare? Is it trending up? Is it down? But that's still a lot of people that are voluntarily moving on from whatever job they had. Some of that is because they've worked from home for a year and a half, and all of a sudden, okay, you got to come back in the office. And they're like, why? And I got to sit in traffic, got to pay for ever increasing gasoline prices.
But
It just doesn't make sense. And oh, by the way, I've got 5 jobs I can apply for over here that'll let me work from home or anywhere else I want to be in the
that's
US.
what I was gonna say. Where are they getting to work? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like, you gotta eat. You gotta have money to eat. you know?
Yeah. Well, but it is a job seekers market right now.
Yeah.
There's 11. So the same statistic, the same government report I was reading, there's 11.5 million open jobs in March. 4.5 million people quit. That's still not even covering half of what opportunities are out there.
Yeah. Big difference. So
Big difference. But and still, when you get down to the individual level, it's like, okay, well, does that mean somebody's quitting a high paying accounting job and going to work doing some online lower paid because they're going into a new field? Or what's the balance of that with people making those job shifts? Research is also showing half the people that have moved jobs aren't happy, and they would go back if they could, because whatever. That's back to what you mentioned earlier. It's like, it's on me, right?
Yeah,
so if I make the job change, am I doing it for the right reasons? Otherwise, when I get to the new job, I'm still there with me, and I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah.
Why did I make the job change? Am I working on myself? One of the things you mentioned, what did we do? My wife and I, during the great lockdown, a lot of personal development started happening.
Yeah.
It's like, where do I need to keep working on skills to let me absorb as much of that and start to apply it as I can, and then look where are the opportunities that are being created. Yeah. The more chaotic it gets, the more opportunities there are. It's a bizarre spiritual math, right? The more it's the ancient line, the ancient wisdom is in the seed of within every adversity lies the seed of an equal or greater opportunity.
That's right. Yeah.
So I look at that and go, okay, I need to constantly work on mindset. I'm still, so that bake that into my, my weekly routine. How am I working on mindset, perspective, my ability to connect with people and be the guy I would like to be, as opposed to, the guy that needs to have a good friend yank him outside of the workshop and go, hey, what's up with the attitude?
Okay. Well, I mean, in my history, Jeff, I mean, personally, so, I'm famous for working in an industry when I get into it because I love it, right? And then I work myself to death and burn myself out.
Yes.
And then something else comes along that looks slightly good. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going there. And I abandoned it all. I'm famous for this. Now, I mean, I've done this in the auto industry. I've done it when I ran a truck shop. I did it when I worked for Starbucks. I'm getting to the point in the marketing business, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we do. Personal development has got to matter, because if you're not growing yourself in that business, in any business, you're going to become burnt out everywhere you go. It's not the jobs that's been the problems. All of those things where I got burned out, where was the problem?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So anyway,
but it's so much, but it feels so much better when I can go, no. It's not
Jeff's
me.
fault.
It's
Not
this
me.
over
Jeff's
here,
fault.
right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Craig's fault. Craig, I'm sure will listen and we'll blame it on him.
Yeah. Craig, we're gonna blame you today. Unless you chime in on chat real quick. Who's not here? That's I was in running a meeting last week and we were joking around. Somebody was not able to be there. Yeah, we knew it. And they're going, well, who are we going to assign this task to? Oh, Bob's not here. Let's give it to him.
Bob gets this one. Yep, there you go. Bob will show up for the next meeting.
Those who show up get to make the rules.
Yeah,
and get to pick and choose what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's been great chatting with you today. I mean, we've covered a lot of information. But you got stuff going on. You want people to connect with you. All right. Website, best places they can connect with you on. Where do you want them to go?
Best place to connect is at adventureceo.com.
Okay.
And we're having a public complimentary 1 hour webinar on what are the things that you need to do. So it's a guide for entrepreneurs to grow their businesses during high inflation. Cool. So what are the shifts? What are those little nuances that make a difference between really struggling and being successful during high inflation? And the ugly truth is there's no guarantees, but we're looking at what has consistently worked. What have been the common themes over drawing a lot from late 70s, early 80s when we had a real high inflation spiral that put companies on a path where they're able to beat the heck out of their competition during the current circumstances and then really thrive as the economy improved.
Cool.
And we've got a guide that we produced. It's a summary of 21 of the tactics that you can use in your business today to get through high inflation.
That's cool, man. So, all right, we'll have them go to adventureceo.com, find out more. So, before we go, I'm still playing a game, dude. I know. So I have 5 envelopes. Yeah. Numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You pick which one matters to you, and I'm going to ask you the questions that are in that envelope.
4.
I got to make sure I get to 4 because I'm looking at them on your screen, and they look differently from where they are in my hand. I found that out the wrong way the other day.
Oh, no.
So what we do is we put the questions inside here, and I don't know what questions you're going to get. So if you get the girl questions, it's your own darn fault.
So do I have to give the answers before you ask the question?
Oh, I should try that as my next game. Do you remember that? That was a Johnny
Carson.
Yeah, Johnny Carson. I remember that. So, nope. So they're all this or that questions. There's 7 of them total. And I'm just going to give them to you. And maybe they got a story behind them. Maybe they don't. We'll find out.
All right.
Question number 1, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek.
All right. Question number 2, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
All right. Now we get interesting. Camping in a tent or going in a hotel, staying in a hotel?
Depends.
No, Jeff. You don't. Okay. You don't want to carry depends with you. All right. When you carry depends with you, you don't want to go to either one of them. You want to stay at home.
Well, the truth is sometimes a little depends is needed because you just never know. Air or solids. Risky.
All right. Now
I've had some great times camping, but I liked what the story you were telling about your motorcycle trip. We did that when we went to South Dakota from California.
Yeah.
Where, we'd camp some nights. And if we've got time for a quick story about that, we camped on the way home in Thermopolis, Wyoming. We were on the road with 8 people for more than it's about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks at this point. And we arrive at the campgrounds at this hot spring in Wyoming at midnight. It is dumping down rain. I mean, you can't see past the end of your headlight kind of rain when we get there. Mm-hmm. We're pitching camp in the dark in unfamiliar area under these circumstances. It's just raining like crazy. We're just all, you can hear everybody just like groan and go, oh, finally. I'm in my tent, right? A little bit of dry. I got a pup tent, just big enough for one. And I am dog tired. As soon as I lay down, I am snoring. Right? I'm cutting the forest down.
Mm-hmm.
About 3 a.m., come to find out, I had pitched my tent 6 feet away from an active freight train rail. What do freight trains do when they come through a populated area?
You hit the horn.
So at 3 a.m., in the middle of thunder and lightning, I get from a freight train about 20 yards away from me, letting everybody know that it's about to roll through the campgrounds. I literally woke up as I was falling back to the ground after ripping my tent out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And all I can hear is my dear friends who always have my back snickering and laughing because now I have to put my tent up all over again. I could literally rip my tent right out of the ground. And so, what the? Because I woke up and the first thing I thought is I'm about to get cut in two by a train. Yeah. I was like, what?
No. That reminds me of the Joe Pesci movie where he basically comes down to the hotel desk. Does that train go through here at 5 a.m. every morning? No, sir. The next day it goes through and he says, I thought you said that train didn't go through at 5 a.m. It doesn't, sir. Usually it comes through at 4:55.
So, and that's also another example of why having some Depends in your road kit can be a smart move.
See, I've gotten accustomed to hotels. And yes. The last road trip I ever did on the motorcycle, I came back from Phoenix back home and from Las Cruces, New Mexico, all the way across West Texas, 2 days, pouring rain. And I remember getting to my hotel the first night and I should have just stayed there a second night. I shouldn't even gone because I literally walked in and drained everything off me. It was soaking wet. The next morning, I barely had some of the stuff dry to put on. Oh. And I remember getting to Fort Worth. And finally, I literally come down mountain into the Fort Worth area. The clouds part and sun comes out. I pull into the first gas station and shed. I can't tell you. I changed my pants underneath my rain gear.
Yeah.
Took the rain gear off, wallowed into a bag. I took my boots and threw them in the trash. My socks threw them in the trash. My shirt threw it in the trash. My jacket threw it in the trash because it was soaking wet.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm like, my shoes are shot anyway. I'll just buy another pair when I get home. They're $30. I didn't want to deal with it. I'm like, I'm not going to try to find bags to put all this stuff in. I've got no more room on the bike. Screw it.
Yeah. You know, and it doesn't matter how good your rain gear is. With that much rain for that long, the water finds its way in. Once it does, you're soaked.
Yeah. So
it just doesn't stop.
Yeah. The only other rain trip I ever did that really annoyed me, other than the 66, was and we had hotels the whole way, so it didn't matter, but was going through Yellowstone.
Oh.
I'm stuck behind a camper that's just trudging along at 20 miles an hour, and there's nowhere to pull over. You got no place to cover yourself in Yellowstone. It's stand up next to a little tree. There's no cover. Like, what do you do? Might as well stay in the freaking line and keep rolling. So anyway, but that's the ones that I had. So anyway, let me move on here. Number 4 question: heels or boots?
Boots. Boots. We don't talk about the heels.
Yeah, I told you might get the girl questions, dude. Breakfast, pancake or waffle?
Pancake.
All right. And are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog. I like cats, but dogs, absolutely. And when I say dog, I mean dog, real dog, no pocket poodle, none of these fake pretend dogs, but like a solid Labrador.
I kind of like I was neither until I had a cat.
Yeah,
I like dogs, but I like my grandpuppies because when I'm done spoiling them, I don't have to walk them. I send them home with the kids.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. Question number 7, and I know you've gotten this one before. Toilet paper at your house, does it go over on the roll or under?
Over.
Over.
Was counseled by a professional on that that years and years and years ago I was doing it wrong because it was under, and this was someone that professionally stocked toilet paper in restrooms all over the Southland here in California. and got some good guidance on that. It's supposed to go over.
I don't put it either. I don't care.
As long as it's there, that's the most
All I
important thing.
wanted is there. All right. My wife's bathroom, it matters. My bathroom don't matter. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me today. Make sure they know your website one more time, both audio and video. Tell them what it is.
AdventureCEO.com. That's AdventureCEO.com. No spaces.
Cool. Well, as always, man, it's great having you as part of the show. Thank you for coming in today, taking time out of your schedule.
It's truly an honor being here. It's great to have a chance to reconnect and chat. And man, thanks for making it a great day.
Cool. So, to you guys, listeners, I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. All right, giving us a lot of good comments that we got in here today. And if you haven't by now, go subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as where you get your podcasts. I'm Tim Gillette, and I'll be back with another guest real soon. Have a great day, guys.